If you ever want to see an area that causes more stress as well as more joy, then it's intimate relationships. And the difference between having joy and having success versus having stress or lack of love or unconditional fulfillment is usually a level of insight into yourself and relationships that unfortunately we just don't learn in school. Now, obviously the number one key to happiness is your relationship with yourself. If you are not in a place where your relationship with yourself is fulfilling and complete, then no other relationship, especially intimate relationships, are going to work. It's almost like, if I use the metaphor, the letter C, like a capital C, and most people walking around as a half C, hoping to find a relationship that will complete them. Another half C so they can join and be this magical whole. And the self-talk, you must have heard it many times. If only I find the right person, then I'll be happy. If only I meet this person, then I'll be happy. If only my partner was like this, then I'd be happy. And the truth is that unless you become the O yourself, the full circle yourself, then all you will have is two people that are half circles. And two half circles will never make a full circle unless it's in one person. So you can walk around your whole life hoping to find somebody that can complete you and miss the fact that what you really needed to do was look in the mirror for the other half. What is the first step in relationships? Well, one of the first things I want to cover here is that the first step is knowing what it is that you want in the context of a relationship and being honest about it. Not just with the partner that you hope to attract or engage with, but more importantly, my friends, being honest with yourself. Because most people, in my experience, have no clue why they're in a relationship. It almost happens by accident. But if I start by saying, there's a huge difference between wanting to be in a relationship because you value connection and wanting to be in a relationship because you don't want to be alone. And a lot of people look for relationships because they don't want to be alone. Going back to my metaphor of the half circle, unfortunately, if you take somebody who's alone, you could put them in Wembley Stadium in London with 50,000 people and they would still feel alone. Do you get it? It's not about proximity. It's not about people around them. It's about a sense of loss inside that is unfulfilled. It's about a fear of loneliness because they can only be lonely if they're not comfortable with themselves. People who are very comfortable in their own skin never get lonely. How can they? And they always have themselves with them. If you don't like yourself or parts of yourself, then it's very easy to feel alone because you're always trying to resist that part of you and hopefully want to make it up by bringing somebody outside, i.e. a relationship, into your experience to hopefully complete you. And as I've just said, if that is your goal for being in a relationship, it will never work. If you feel alone and you attract somebody else who's alone, guess what? Now there's two of you alone. And unfortunately, we go through life putting expectations that we have no right to demand on somebody else because we haven't got our party in order. Other reasons people get into relationships is maybe fear of running out of time. Thinking, well, if I don't settle down soon, maybe I'll run out of time. There's a fear aspect to it, which forces them into making decisions that maybe if they had more time, they wouldn't make those decisions. People who have never been alone or have never been outside of a relationship, for example, let's say they got married very early and then all of a sudden 20 years later they get divorced and they find themselves alone for the first time in their life. It's a case of, wow, who am I? Their whole identity, which is the most powerful force in the human personality, is your sense of self on how you identify yourself. So if somebody doesn't see themselves as single or is not comfortable with that identity, then they will rush to get into another relationship, not based upon it being the right person, not based upon an alignment of values, not based upon a common ground for what both of those people want, but purely because they don't see themselves as single. Certainly not the right grounding or foundation for a relationship of long-term happiness and love. Other reasons are maybe people get into relationships to feel validated, i.e., if they can't have a relationship, then it proves they're not good enough. Or they do it for significance, that the better quality of partner that I have or I'm seen with, then maybe through the eyes of other people, I will feel significant. This is a common teenage pattern that unfortunately a lot of people never grow out of. You have the guys that want to take the best looking girl at school because therefore they feel that the other guys in school will think that, wow, if she's dating him, he's obviously got something. And usually a lot of that is all to avoid the primary fear. The fear of not being enough. The fear that ultimately we won't be loved. and therefore I need to validate myself by the quality of partner I have. A similar pattern to that, which I'm sure you're familiar with, is certainty. If you have a relationship attracted or formed on the basis that the more money I have, the more people I can attract, then you're always going to be fearful of losing the money, which means that by definition, you will lose the connection and the people in your life because of it. And you'll always have the little voice in your head that will say that really this person isn't here for me. They're here for what I represent to them. And there's no basis for genuine, authentic love. There's people that get involved in relationships for convenience. It sounds crazy, guys, but there are people that have relationships or go out to find relationships because they don't think they can cope on their own, and it would be convenient to have somebody. Although they're always traveling, and it'd be nice to have somebody on my arm, when I check into a hotel. And there's people that go after relationships because they're under the illusion that it'll bring them happiness. Anybody that's been married will probably know that happiness is not guaranteed by a relationship. Unfortunately, most people go after this notional concept of love without actually even understanding what true love is.